Hello everyone and welcome to DC Central, and in today's video we are going to be doing our whole season overview for The Flash Season 5. This is going to be a long one, so make sure you sit back, get a drink, get a snack, and settle in for this extra long video. So just to quickly address the elephant in the room, I have been gone for quite a significant while of time, or significant, amount of time for this channel, around 2 weeks or so, slightly longer than that. I have been very, very ill over the past couple of weeks. I have been basically in bed constantly, and that is because I've had gastroenteritis, so I do apologize for that. I've literally just not been able to make videos at all, so if you've been wondering where I've been, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll be able to keep up with my updates on that, but yeah, that's where I've been. I do apologize for the lack of videos, but I literally could not do anything. But with all that cleared up, let's talk about The Flash Season 5. So as always, I'll start with the positives, and let's talk about the best episodes of the season. For me, that is episodes 1 to 9, which is, was the first half of the season. I thought that was all pretty strong. I think The Flash Season 5 opened really incredibly strong. Also, episode 15 was very, very good. Episode 18, with obviously Godspeed, that was a really good episode. And also, I think once you get to episode 18 all the way up to the finale, I think Season 5 ends in a pretty good place as well. So I think, you've got to look at the first half of the season, the very last few episodes, and with a couple of shining lights here and there in the middle, which, other than those 2 episodes, was a pretty weak middle overall. Now, a big thing for this season is the addition of Nora West Allen, played by Jessica Parker Kennedy, who is, of course, the daughter of Barry and Iris from the future. I liked Nora. I wouldn't say I loved Nora. I did like her, though. I liked her energy that she brought to the show. I appreciated her kind of naivety and kind of, eagerness to do good and do what she wanted to do. She obviously was working with Eobard Thawne to come back to our time to help Barry stop Cicada and thus stop him vanishing in the eventual crisis. And I think that Nora was a good addition to the show. I think at times her writing was pretty bad, and that has nothing to do with the character itself or the performance from Jessica. It's just, like I say, the writing made her seem incredibly younger than she was meant to be. Nora is supposed to be around the same age as Barry and Iris at this point, but they always wrote her as kind of like a bratty teenager, and for that it just doesn't work. It doesn't line up for that particular character, because, like I say, she's supposed to be in like her late 20s, early 30s at this point, which is a similar age bracket for Barry and Iris, and the fact that they make it seem like she's so much younger, it seems a bit strange. But overall, I did enjoy Nora. I like the fact they made her XS from the comics. Obviously, XS is Jenny Ognatz, who is the granddaughter of Barry and Iris, but they basically gave her that superhero identity, and I like the suit as well. Obviously, we got some foreshadowing with that last season with Iris's jacket, and I liked all that. I liked her kind of combination, and she did seem like the child of Barry and Iris, so as far as casting goes and as far as performance goes, I think that all comes together quite nicely. Another character I want to talk about is Ralph, because Ralph was a bit of a hit and miss character for many people last season. I was a big fan of him, but many people weren't. Ralph was massively improved this season. They really nailed Ralph this season in regards to how they want to use him. He's not this dumb, misogynistic character who comes in and does quips. He is actually a smart and valuable asset to the team. And in this season, you really start to come through with that. You get to see that come through Ralph a little bit more. Not as much as I'd like, but I'm hoping next season, given where we left with Ralph at the end of the season, I'm hoping we will explore that a little bit more. But, Ralph is an incredibly good detective, and we need to see that more. And I feel like in this season, we really got to see that, being used more rather than his superhero abilities, which, while his superhero abilities are cool, and I do like the elongated man, Ralph Dibney is, for me personally, a lot more interesting, and I think in this season they really toned Ralph down and made him a lot more down to earth and grounded as an actual person, and therefore he became a lot more likable to everybody. Like I say, I was a big fan of Ralph last season already, but in this season they just made him 10 times better in my opinion. Now, Iris was a big talking point last season. Obviously, a lot of people were not a fan of the direction they took Iris last season, making her the leader of Team Flash. She is in a lot more of a reduced role in this season in regards to the team leader aspect. She's still obviously a main character, but in this season, she's a lot more reduced in the sense that she doesn't get as involved as much as she did in Season 4, which is good. Obviously, I don't think Iris necessarily needs to be out there in the field because, you know, why would she be? However, I would have liked to have seen more journalism stuff because, you know, that is kind of what they teased for this season, and Candice Patton was really excited about that, and it seems like that never happened. It seems like Candice Patton has been quite annoyed with the writers as of late, and I understand why, because they're just making Iris completely out of character, but Iris was definitely a lot better this season than she was last season, so that's an improvement, which is why it's in this section. And I have to say also, I like Barry in this season. You know, they've kind of made Barry a bit of an incompetent idiot over the last couple of seasons, but at least in this season, although he was incredibly naive to begin with, I actually quite like that they made him quite harsh in this season, in the sense that as soon as he found out that Nora was working with Eobard Thawne, he really wanted nothing to do with her, and he really was at that mindset for a very long time, and I found that actually quite applaudable, and I thought that was pretty brave to actually make him, because they made some pretty Barry did some pretty dick moves, and I think they really actually I think that was good to actually show that side of him, because again, he's normally so happy-go-lucky, but in this he wasn't like that all the time, and I think that was definitely an improvement, and again showed a different side to Barry that we haven't seen in a while, and didn't make him seem like such an incompetent idiot that he has been over the past, you know, season 3 and 4. We also got a couple of really good villains this season. Obviously, we did get the addition of Ragdoll. That's a particular one that stands out to me. I really enjoyed Ragdoll. He was just super creepy and super weird and such an interesting villain, like such an interesting, like visually interesting villain that we'd never really seen before. So I appreciated him. Like, he was definitely an awesome choice. I hope we see him again next season, or at least just at some point in the future, because he was just, again, just incredibly strange, esoteric, and very visually interesting villain that I really enjoyed watching. And also we got Godspeed introduced in this season as well. Godspeed is a character that the Flash fans have been wanting to see for a very long time, and we finally got him introduced here, and I liked seeing Godspeed here. It was definitely cool. He was not in, you know, the season that much. He's only in one episode, but, you know, for the fans who have been wanting Godspeed, he is there. I am curious if we're ever going to see him again. It kind of seems unlikely, to be honest, but who knows? He might end up being the Season 6 villain, who knows? But it was still cool to get there, and that suit was incredible for Godspeed. Really cool. And also, like I say, that Godspeed episode is one of the best episodes of the season, so, you know, take that as you will. I think that Godspeed, that, you know, if this is the one time we get to see Godspeed on The Flash, it was definitely a job well done. And speaking of good villains, the Reverse Flash does return in a pretty significant role this season, and once again, the Reverse Flash just proves time and time again that he is the best villain on this show. Eobard Thawne is just so much fun to watch on screen, because you never quite know what his motives are. You never quite understand where he's coming from. You know, he's been working with Nora this entire season, and it seems like he's almost sympathetic towards Nora, almost like he actually does care about her. And in this season, it was really cool to see that, because it was really interesting, because he was very quiet this season. He was very subdued, and I really enjoyed that, you know, seeing him in prison and seeing how he really meticulously crafted this plan to get himself out of prison was perfect. You know, it was very textbook Eobard Thawne, the way he planned it all out, and by the end of the season, when you see how his whole plan wrapped up, you were like, yeah, I mean, fair play, that was a really good plan. And, you know, you're almost rooting for Eobard Thawne at that point, because it was so well done. And Tom Cavanaugh playing him once again, although technically, obviously at this point, this should be Matt Letcher playing him. You know, we all know why that's not happening. It's because Matt Letcher was filming Narcos Mexico at this time. But, you know, I actually personally prefer Tom Cavanaugh as the Reverse Flash, just because that's kind of, you know, who it was in Season 1. And once again, delivers a stellar performance as always, and I really enjoyed that. Now moving over to the negatives. The biggest negative of this season comes in the form of the villain, which is Cicada. Cicada, for me, was a villain I was never excited about. I remember way back when, before the season started, when the rumours came out that Cicada was going to be the villain, I personally was not excited about it. I was like, I just don't care about this Cicada character. And then it was officially confirmed to be Cicada, and I thought, okay, let's just, you know, give it a go, see how it does. But for me, Cicada completely fell flat as a villain. I did not care about, you know, their story. Obviously, we had technically 2 Cicadas. We had the All and Dwyer and then the Grace Gibbons version. The Grace Gibbons version technically being the big bad of the season, but obviously we dealt with All and Dwyer for quite a bit as well. But I'm just talking about Cicada, both of them as a whole. I personally did not enjoy either of them. I think they were both just kind of bland and boring and just not that interesting. I didn't really feel sorry for them. I didn't really feel, you know, like their story was particularly engrossing. I just kind of felt like Cicada was a character who we could have dealt with in the mid-season, you know, and after the mid-season finale we could have dealt with that, and then for the rest of the season we could have dealt with the Reverse Flash, because that was a lot more interesting at this point given where Nora's story went. It always just felt like Cicada was just, you know, coming in every now and then. And also, they never really explained what Cicada's powers were. I mean, yeah, we knew he could take away powers, he had the dagger, but then, you know, they never explained the magical flying up in the air ability, which I know has just become a joke within the Flash community recently, but every episode when that happened, it really infuriated me, because it was just, not only was it bad writing, because they just couldn't defeat Cicada because we're only on episode, I don't know, episode 11, so we can't defeat Cicada at this point. So not only is it bad writing, but the fact that they never explained it, it just makes no logical sense, and I really didn't enjoy that either. So Cicada for me was just not a good choice. And then on top of that, Chris Klein, who played Cicada, you know, the All and Dwyer, the first Cicada, I don't know what was going through his head in regards to his acting choices. I don't know if this was him or if this was direction, but it was dreadful. Like, trying to play it so over the top and so dramatic was such a bad decision, because he was trying so hard to be threatening that he was just not threatening at all. The voice that he used, the way he was just constantly growling and grouching, was just a terrible decision, and I feel like it was just a really bad acting choice that shouldn't have been made. And again, it was just terrible, and it's a shame, because there are a couple of scenes in this season where Chris Klein basically just plays himself, and those scenes were actually normal. They actually felt normal, but with all the other scenes where he's playing Cicada, just terrible. And this leads into the season-long storyline. The Cicada storyline was not strong enough to suspend this entire season, and that is the big problem here. I've seen some people kind of say that the season-long storyline was good here. I personally disagree, because the season-long storyline was basically every episode being, oh, here's Cicada, here's how we stop him, oh no, she flew away again. That was literally, like, that's not a good season-long storyline. And yes, I mean, the season-long storyline with Nora and Reverse Flash was pretty decent, but we didn't really know what was going on with that, and we were only finding out little bits here and there. And it was only when we got to the very end of the season where we saw how involved that all was. So it didn't, you know, it paid off at the very, very end, but, you know, that doesn't make up for all the time we spent, you know, building up to that. So when we're actually in that time, you know, and we're dealing with Cicada without really knowing what's going on with the Reverse Flash and Nora and why we're even fighting Cicada in the first place, it just becomes repetitive, and it just becomes boring, and it just shows again why Cicada was a very bad choice for the villain of this season. And because of this lack of a strong season-long storyline, that led to this season having a lot of filler episodes. And granted, there were a couple of filler episodes that were some of the best of the season, such as episode 15, like I mentioned earlier, which was the King Shark Gorilla Grodd episode. Complete filler, but it was really fun and refreshing at the time. The Godspeed episode, well, it did give us some good origin stuff. Again, it was kind of filler. And, you know, most of these filler episodes come from the fact that, again, Cicada just gets away and just flies off, and it's just ridiculous. Also, I think Cisco has been a poorly handled character on this show for a while now. It seems like they just don't know what to do with him. And in this season, you know, there's been a lot of rumors about Carlos Valdez, who plays Cisco, leaving the show. And it seems like that potentially has happened. There still hasn't really been any official word on that yet. And it's very shaky at the end of the season what happens to him. But Cisco, he just gets nothing to do this season again, and he's barely in the episodes. Like, he's not really in a lot of them, and for me, I see that as the writers testing the water to see how the audience does without him, because he won't be in next season. So, you know, the fact that Cisco, again, just got absolutely nothing to do in this season outside of a new love interest, which is basically just his way of getting written out of the show, it just feels like, you know, what was the point of having him here? He barely uses his powers. I mean, they tried to give him something interesting with his powers, where, you know, he kind of got affected by Cicada and he couldn't really use his powers properly. But again, all these different things were just cruxes to write him out of the show. And again, if you're just going to do that, then, you know, it's hard to really get that invested in his storylines. Same goes for Caitlyn as well. Caitlyn was not used very well in this season, as she was not last season. While Killer Frost was the ace in the hole when it came to Cicada, at least initially, Caitlyn, just her storyline, you know, although they tried to do something with her father and bringing in Icicle, those episodes, that was only 2 episodes, so it wasn't really much of a story beyond that, and that was really disappointing because I felt like we were going to get something really interesting with Caitlyn this season, and we just didn't. Also, in regards to characters, where was Wally this season? Wally, completely missing, completely gone. I mean, I know this is not really a show creative decision. This is Keenan Lonsdale, the actor's decision, who, you know, he kind of announced that he was leaving the show. But I'm pretty sure it was announced beforehand that he was scheduled for 3 episodes this season, and he was only in the premiere. So, you know, there was a severe lack of Wally this season. I mean, this just further proves that Wally is a character that the show just can't deal with and can't tackle. They don't know what to do with him, so he was completely gone. And again, I feel like that is more to do with Keenan Lonsdale rather than the writers. I feel like if we could have had Wally in this season, then maybe we would have had. But then again, in saying that, the character of Nora has basically completely replaced Wally, and it's just, you know, what's the point of having 2, because they're basically the same character. But hopefully we'll see Wally in Crisis, maybe, who knows. I feel like we need to see Wally again at some point, but he was completely missing from this season, and I missed him this season. And the new suit. We got the new suit this season. I did not like this suit. It did grow on me over time, where I just kind of got used to it. And, I mean, we did get the flash ring, which was pretty cool, but we only really got to see the actual animation of it a couple of times, so it didn't really feel like it was that useful or that impactful. But the suit itself, it was badly designed. It didn't look very good, especially when it came to the helmet and the way they designed kind of the bicycle helmet design. It just didn't look very good. The lack of the chin strap was very noticeable, and I still don't understand to this day why they changed the Season 4 suit. Like, everyone loved the Season 4 suit. I don't know why people complained, you know, who was complaining about the Season 4 suit? I didn't see anyone complaining about it, so I don't know why they felt the need to change it again and give us a new one, especially because this is by far, in my opinion, the worst suit they have ever done, and it just looked, it just didn't look very good, and it hurts me to say it, but it just didn't look very good. And this was particularly apparent in the Elseworlds crossover when Stephen Amell had to wear the suit, because obviously he filled it out a lot more, and it looked even worse. So this was definitely not a good choice. I'm wondering if we'll stick with this suit for season 6, or if we'll get another suit again, or maybe we'll just get like a more modified version of this. Hopefully we'll get a modified version, because I'm sure with some modifications this could look pretty decent. Overall, although I've been pretty negative on The Flash Season 5 throughout my reviews of the year, looking back in retrospect, the season was not as bad as I initially first thought. I think the problem is with a show like The Flash, when you have 22 episodes in the season and you're going through them week by week, you know, you have a lot more time to kind of dwell over the episodes. But looking back in retrospect, I think the season started out incredibly strong with those first few episodes. Like I say, kind of the first 9 episodes, I actually think are pretty strong for the season. And then moving into the back half, I think the last kind of 5 episodes are pretty strong as well. It just has a very weak middle where nothing really happened. And that was where the big problem came from with its season-long storyline and having to deal with Cicada and him constantly getting away all the time. It just wasn't very interesting. But as soon as the storyline kind of kicked into gear with Cicada 2 coming in, with, you know, the Grace Gibbons version, I think the storyline really got a lot better, and we were actually able to get into that storyline and push it forward, and that was when we really got a lot more momentum for the season, and it ended in a very strong place with a great finale. And I feel like, looking back overall, The Flash Season 5, it's not the best season of The Flash, but it's definitely not the worst. So thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like. It'll help me out a lot. And share this video with anyone and everyone you know who loves DC TV, and get them to join the community. And as always, guys, please subscribe for your latest content on Supergirl, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Arrow. And with all that said, guys, I hope to see you again in my next video.